Welcome, everybody. Happy Juneteenth. We said happy Juneteenth. Okay, we got some fly shirts over here. Dr. Webb, what you got on?
Read books, drink coffee, dismantle systems of oppression.
Love it. Love it.
And
From
by read books, I mean specifically read my book.
read your book. From the motherland, y'all. Got my shirt
Love
from the
it.
motherland. Thank you. So happy Juneteenth. We are so happy that you are here. We are going to have a really great discussion on this Juneteenth. As we have this discussion, please keep our ancestors in mind, okay? And
Mhm.
don't disappoint them, okay, with foolishness. All right, because we got to have some honest conversations, and that's not always fun. So
Right.
first, we're going to start with the logistics. I just want to let you all know that Jay is in the chat, and Jay will be moderating for today. The second thing is that we are going to go into the question section after an hour and 30 minutes of talking. So we're just going to let Dr. Webb do the thing that Dr. Webb came to do. So we just going to jump in because we got a lot to get to today. And I'm so happy. This is my second Juneteenth live. Maybe we can get a third
Woohoo.
next year. So excited. Okay, Dr. Sarah Webb, please, please, please introduce yourself, your channel, and your book. Just want to say, incredible mentor who paved the way for colorism for me to just follow and also talk about this topic.
So I am Dr. Sarah Webb. I am the author of Colorism, The Politics of Skin Tone and How We Get Free. That is a book that comes out on July 7th, and it is the culmination of 15 years of study, research, reflection, coaching, facilitating, curating, all the things on the topic of colorism. And I think and also my platforms are Colorism Healing as well as Dr. Sarah L. Webb.
Fantastic, straight to the point. I love that. Okay, so Dr. Sarah Elweb, tell us what was your goal in writing your colorism book and who is your intended audience?
Yes. So my goal, I had a couple of goals. The first one is to make it easier to spread the message to a wider audience. So I feel like a book is a very compact, concise container for an overarching message I have that can easily it's easy to spread word about a book, right? As opposed to like a website or a social media channel. And my goal was for everyone to understand colorism just as a phenomenon, as a global phenomenon, and more deeply how they are positioned within that system of colorism and how they are positioned to challenge it or to help dismantle it. And the other goal that I have for the book is for people to have a tool or a resource that they can use in their own efforts to advocate or fight against this topic. And my intended audience really was everyone. I don't know if my editor would like that answer. But I was like, yeah, all the people. But to be precise, though, it was people who are having a deeper conversation about colorism for the first time, right? And so it was a joy to me for you to read an early copy of the book and say that even though you wrote your dissertation on colorism, you still learned something from the book as well. But I think the core audience that I had in mind were people who have never really had a had access to a resource that fully lays out what colorism is, how it manifests, and how we can address it. So,
That makes sense. Yes, I learned something. I learned so many things. I learned how brave you are to deal with this world because we're going to get into that. Okay, because they tried it and that was not okay, Dr. Webb. I want to first explain the difference between racism and colorism. This is probably something that is very common for us as colorism scholars to dismantle. All right, we're gonna get
yes.
into it. All right. So,
So I see
racism.
someone. I see someone in the chat asking if I could show them a copy of the book. So I have a
Oh,
proof copy. I'm
yes.
gonna. I'm gonna hop off
Okay.
and go get it.
Okay, let's go. Okay, who asked for the copy?
See, this is the beautiful. I have to show it. We might as well show it right early in the live stream because the
Oh,
cover itself is a story. So the
is.
difference between racism and colorism, racism is based on the social classifications. I'll start with what I like to say, a phrase, a statement I like to say oftentimes. Race is a social construct, skin tone is a biological fact with socially constructed meanings. And again, one of the arguments I make just in general, but also in the book, is that um, whether or not conceptions of race change and evolve and shift over time, my skin tone would be the same in all of those contexts. And so we have to, absolutely have to be able to use a colorism framework when we're talking about liberation and identity politics. And so racism is based on those classifications of ancestry, lineage, heritage, with a lot of other social categories and stuff involved. Colorism, however, is based on the actual, like literal skin tone of a person that is both tied to your racial classification as well as independent of it. And so people can have the same racial designation and have very different skin tones, and people can have the same skin tone and have different racial designations, right? And so when we think about racism versus colorism, a lot of the thing that confuses people is, oh well, it has to be one or the other. And in a lot of cases, it's both racism and colorism happening simultaneously. But I think the reason why racism seems like the easier thing for people to recognize or latch onto is because of like the social discourse around using color as a synonym for race, or thinking of like, oh, these are black people, these are brown people, these are white people, these are yellow people, quote unquote. And so that makes people think, oh, well, when you're talking about color, you're really talking about race, and not getting into the nuance of like, well, actually within racial categories, we have actual skin colors and skin tones as well.
Love that. Okay, that we had to just get that out of there because it's going to be like racism, colorism. What is the difference? They can
Mhm.
work independently of each other, or they can work in
Correct.
tandem. So we understand that. Dr. Webb, I'm going to challenge you. Could you put the book up in some way near you so we can just see it this whole time? If that is the thing that you are able to do. Oh, there we go. There we go. Right there. Perfect. The book is
Let me
right
move
there.
my.
Perfect. All right. That's what we're talking about. We are talking about Dr. Webb's book on colorism. As mentioned, I read the entire book. And so we're going to get through this chapter by chapter. The first thing we're going to talk about, obviously, is chapter one. And I thought it was very fascinating for when you talked about your family experiences growing up. And in the research, it shows that actually the first time we learn about colorism is from our families. If we have had experiences where people are like, before you were even born, what color is that baby going to be, right? When two
Mhm.
people of different races are together, they're like, oh, I wonder what that baby will look like. That is a part of what we're talking about, where we're already curious of the skin tone and the hair texture and the features of that baby before that baby has even been conceived sometimes. And then
Correct.
when the baby is born, the situation of looking behind the baby's ears to see what the color is going to do, making
Mhm.
comments about the color as the baby is growing, all of those things. So definitely we start to learn about that colorism from our families. Those are our first interactions before we really understand what
Mhm.
media and TV or any of these
Exactly.
things.
Yes.
And so I would love to hear from you about your family. If you could describe your skin tone, your parents' skin tone, your sibling skin tone, and then how you were treated versus the other members of your family based on said skin tone.
Yeah. So my mom is lighter skinned and my dad is darker skinned, closer to my complexion. And I'm the youngest of three siblings. So my brother is the oldest and he has a dark skin tone. My sister is the middle child. She's several shades lighter than my brother and I. And then I am the third child. I'm the girl and I'm also dark skinned. And so like my parents and my siblings didn't make me feel differently, and I didn't see like within the household differential treatment, but as a family unit, there were differences in how people treated us, but particularly me and my sister. And I think it was so evident because we are the same gender and we're closer in age. And so it was very easy to notice that pattern. One, because we were often in the same social spaces, but also in thinking about a lot of the younger years were questions around, well, are you part of that family, or are you like the cousin or the neighbor, right? But even in thinking about questioning, like, do you belong to that family? Even that could be a form of trauma to a child, right? And we're thinking, we remember things of our in adult years, like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But if you are a child and your family is being greeted in the community and you're being treated as if you're not part of that unit that you so closely identify with, right? That um, impacts your sense of belonging and your sense of like, well, why am I the one who seems different from the family? And there being like moments where we have to explicitly argue for that, like argue for the case. Like being with my sister often is like, well, no, you must have at least one parent that's different, and having to explain how genetics works to people. And also thinking about how um, the the basic reality for so many Black families and so many families of color is that many families of that type have different skin tones, but and we look alike, we have the same features, we definitely sound alike, right? But we can't possibly be as closely related as we are if we're different skin tones, no matter how similar we are in mannerisms and features, hair types, all the things. It was like for some reason, like the skin tone specifically overrode all of the other like very obvious signals that we are like blood related. And particularly in like childcare spaces and in social settings in schools and like summer camps, um, seeing the difference between how my sister and I were treated by both adults and peers. There's a story in the book where someone who I thought was a friend, was like, I like your sister better than you because she's white and you're Black. And again, we have the same parents. So the way race works in this society, my sister and I are the same race. But that having a sibling of a different skin tone, I think is what made me so aware at such an early age of the way the world not only views us based on our skin tone, but also treats us as a result of that perception.
I thought that was a wild comment that your sister was white, but also recognizing that you all were young kids. So, like, our concept or understanding of these things might be
Mhm.
different. And I just feel like it is horrible. Yeah, you're right. We get so caught up on the skin tone that we don't see features. You said the mannerisms, right? The way
The
that people,
laugh, yeah. The
it's
body
horrible.
language, like
The
there's
body
so many
language.
other indicators of like what constitutes a family unit. And I mean like blood also, but also like chosen family. Like it's very clear when people identify as part of a unit together. And so I just like anyone listening, I just encourage you to like pause, like to step back if you're ever doubting whether or not someone belongs to a family unit or a particular community because their skin tone is different. And I think that's, one of the things we have to check within ourselves. If we hear other people making those assumptions, we can also speak up and say, hey, um, these things are not limited to skin tone only. Like there are so many other factors that indicate a sense of belonging.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. So you have coined the term monochromatic diversity,
Mm.
explaining, and I would love to talk about this in terms of the media and in terms of the workplace. And I have the example, and it's about to be so sad because friends and family are in the chat. So the person's in the chat, and I'm so sorry, but I have to do what I have to do because it's who I am. Okay. So I know this one person, we were watching a show and they were like, oh my God, Maya, this is so diverse. I'm like, let's get it, let's go. I watched the show and I'm like, all these people are light skinned. How is this diverse? But Dr. Webb, let me tell you, it was a person that was Latin, it was a person that was Asian, it was a person that was mixed race. And so the person was like, hey, like these people have like different identities, they're from different places. But I'm
Yes,
like,
yes, yes.
but they all
But
are
they
like,
all look,
yeah,
the look is very similar.
the
Yeah.
look is the same. And we
Hmm.
know people from these regions that can be darker, that can be brown. So, like, how do we come to the casting of all of the people being light skinned and calling this diversity. So please talk about this monochromatic diversity.
Yeah, I just noticed, like, I don't know what made me use that term. I think I have having an art background. I like the idea of monochromatic things or is in my mind, but it's almost like the push for greater diversity enables colorism in a lot of ways because it's like, look, we are taking up the mantle. We are taking up the mantle. We are increasing our diversity on paper. When we look at our surveys and our spreadsheets, we have all these races and nationalities and languages and gender expressions represented, right? And so I call it the checkbox diversity. We're like, yes, we have people from this place and from that race and from this ethnicity, and then you line everyone up for the group photo at the end of the year celebration, and it's like, oh, I don't actually see a lot of difference, especially in terms of skin tone and sometimes in hair as well, right? Because a lot of times it's intersectional in terms of like, yes, they're all lighter skin, but they also like wear their hair straight. They all have thinner features, but specifically, it is when we have a group that is diverse on paper, racially diverse, ethnically diverse, diverse in terms of gender and identity and religion and all these things, and yet everyone is the same or nearly the same skin tone. And so you see it as, again, and this is why I think people sleep on the issue of colorism, because even if we quote unquote get to a place where people don't care about racial categories anymore, and people are like, yes, we always in every context have racial diversity, we're still going to be left with what you're talking about and what you saw in that show and what I continue to see in countless spaces is like, okay, so we've crossed that hurdle of being able to get people of different races in the room. But if they all still look or approximate whiteness, then are we still maintaining the same hierarchy at the end of the day? And that is a hard question for people to ask.
Yes.
They don't want to ask that question.
They don't want to. I'm so glad you called it out because at that time, like 3 years ago, I was like, this is not diverse. Moving on. Okay, now this one I think is complicated, and I would love for you to really make it more nuanced for us. So, as Black people, we can and we understand the oppression of Blackness. We understand that in terms of being a Black person, in terms of being Black woman, in terms of being Black and trans, in terms of people being fat phobic. Like, we get it, intersections, Blackness, we get it. However, when it comes to being privileged, in terms of being light skinned, in terms of being thin, in terms of being a man, I think we don't get it. And what we need from you is to understand, how can you be oppressed and privileged at the same time? I don't know what you're talking about. How can we be advantaged and also disadvantaged? Because every time they see us, it's Blackness. So what do you
Mm.
mean they're going to treat us differently because we're light or because we're thin? What do you mean by this?
I love how you are embodying the persona of the people who ask these questions. Um, so I'll start with my favorite analogy, also because I like coming up with names and analogies for things. Clearly, my favorite one, and I've shared it elsewhere. You know, it's definitely in the book. Is the pastry line analogy. And so I tell people that if you're in whether you like sweets and cakes and donuts or cheesecake, or whether you are in line for the newest pair of sneakers, right? Like you're standing in line and there are like 100 people in line. A lot of people think that privilege means you're the first person in line. And most people's concept of privilege, like, oh, the first person in line is the privileged person, and everybody else is in the same boat. Okay, so think about this conceptually. Imagine, like, get into embody yourself being in the line. You're somewhere in the middle of the line. Maybe you're number 30 in line, right? You're not the first person in line, but you're not number 99. You're not 102. You're number 30. But you're like, I'm number 30, yes, but I'm not number one. So it doesn't really matter that I'm number 30. And I would beg to differ. So I think when we understand standing in the queue for my international folks, standing in the queue or standing in the line, that being number 30 puts you at a significant advantage of getting that last pair of sneakers or getting that last donut or cheesecake or getting that ticket to the concert than the person who's number 98 in line, right? And so the essence of that analogy is that you don't have to be the very first person in line to still be ahead of lots of other people. And so we all focus on, oh, all these people are in front of me. All these people are in front of me and they're so lucky and they have it better than me because they're in front of me in line. And from that perspective, we always look forward, so to speak. But if you turn around, you realize like, yeah, and someone behind you is saying the same thing about you. Right. So if you're complaining like all those 29 people in front of me, they're going to get all the donuts and they're going to get the last pair of sneakers. And I might not get this concert ticket because there are 29 people in front of me in line. Someone who's number 46, someone who's number 92, they're looking at you and thinking the exact same thing. Okay. And so I want you to know that you might be looking at the cishet wealthy white man and being like, man, he has all this privilege. And there's someone else looking at you and being like, dang, they got a lot of privilege compared to me. And the reality of being in a multi-layered, multi-tiered system is that just like we can name the cis heterosexual wealthy white man as having like these 5 layers, if not more, of privilege, then we can also think about like, okay, but what if they aren't cis? What if they aren't heterosexual? They're still white and they're still a man, right? And so you can still have forms of privilege even if you don't have all the forms of privilege, right? And so it's not all or nothing. So many people want to make it all or nothing. All or nothing. I either have only privilege or have only oppression. And that's not the way the world works. Life is not binary, okay? It's not either or, it's not in or out. It is literally a spectrum of privilege. So I'll stop there because I feel like I've been saying a lot.
That was good. I'm gonna press you. Okay, you're gonna be unprepared, but let's just talk about the privileges that we have. So for
Mm-hmm.
myself, is like even though people will identify me as a dark skinned person, there are people that are darker than me. I recognize that. Sometimes people would even classify me as a medium skin tone. For
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
myself, it's gonna be body, Dr. Webb. And it's so unfortunate because I have internalized that the body is tea, and therefore I work on it all the time, like constantly exercising
Mm-hmm.
because I would think to myself, okay, I'm not the most attractive, but I'm gonna always come through with the body, right? Like I can't change the face, but I can come through with the body.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me. I'm just playing. Also education, obviously, this is not like a physical feature, but I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that when people find that I'm a doctor, they're like, girl, why didn't you lead with that? Right? We were gonna start with the mistreatment, but you said you were educated. Got it.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that's wild.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, Dr. Webb, please, could you tell us what are some of the privileges that you experience in society or you notice that people treat you differently? Like, even though you may be black, you may be dark skinned, you may be woman, like, what are the things that they're like, but you got this. So
Mm-hmm.
we got a few things for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, because someone like was confused when I said that. I was like, oh, even a dark skinned black woman can have privileges. And there's like, what kind of privileges could that person have? And I was like, well, they could be a citizen of the country where they currently live. They could have, naturalized citizenship in that country, right? And that makes a tangible, so substantial difference in being able to maneuver this complicated, oppressive society. And similarly, speaking the language of the country that you currently live, like natively speaking it. Being tall and thin, right? Being, because I used to use this example with my students all the time, right? Like if the elevator is broken, I don't have to think twice about taking the stairs, right? So there's a level of the environment, the physical environment is literally built for bodies that are built like mine and that operate in a way that mine operates. I can reach and open, access just about any door using my own hands and arms. I can go up any amount of steps, right? I don't question. And it's being in close proximity and having friendships with people whose bodies do not operate the same way as mine, where I realize like, oh, there's a level of obliviousness that I have about considering how the physical world is constructed. And I'm like, oh, that's what privilege really you're able to see it. Like, oh, my privilege was in never having to think about, oh, there's a jazz band playing that I want to see, but they're on the second floor in a building that doesn't have an elevator. And so I have to forego seeing going to that event that I would have enjoyed otherwise, right? And so that's something that I have never had to think about as a woman, right? Also being able to go into the bathroom that is, without fear of retaliation, without fear of being attacked or judged or shamed in public because of my gender identity or my gender expression, right? And so feeling like I can go into any public space and use a public restroom without fear of being attacked in some way. And so these are types of privileges that, even despite the amount of colorism, the amount of misogyny war, the amount of racism and sexism I experience, there are other things in my life that I don't have to worry about. And I think, Dr. Maya, a lot of times people insist on understanding privilege through the lens of what I've gotten. Like, oh, I got this tangible advantage over you, right? And one of the things I harp on in the book too is like a lot of times the privilege is like, oh, I didn't have to worry about that thing, right? So it's not like I get upgraded to first class when I buy a ticket because I'm skinny. I don't. But I don't have any anxiety, any concern, any worry about sitting in the seat, putting the seatbelt on, sitting in the middle row, people sitting next to me, crossing over them to use the bathroom, right? Like the airplane is built more or less for a body that is shaped and functions like mine, right? And so I'm not, quote unquote, getting anything extra, but there's a significant layer of stress that I do not have to experience because of things that I quite frankly had nothing to do with.
All right, that was great. That was wonderful. So, plugging the book, we need to buy the book. The book is sitting right here. Yeah, bring the book, bring her forward. Yes, we're going to bring her forward, bring her back, bring her forward, bring her back. How do we get this book? This is what we're talking about, this book. How do we get the book?
So the book is available. Let me see if she gonna stay. We'll let her do it. We'll bring her back up. This is live, folks. Um, the book is available wherever books are sold. So wherever you usually buy books, like if you've got a go-to membership, if you got that local bookshop and you want to go in and be like, hey, this book is coming out in July, I want to order it so that it gets shipped by the time it's out, so you can do that. And I prefer that than sending you to a direct place, right? Like support the booksellers that you would normally typically support, or if you get like free shipping because you're a Barnes and Noble member or something like that, use those. And so I have always wanted to say, for as long as I can remember, yes, my book, it comes out in July and it's available wherever books are sold. But also it comes out in ebook. So if you want to download it immediately, like as soon as July 7th hits, you don't have to wait for it to arrive in the mail. You can just pull out your little e-reader and read it. And one thing I'm really excited about, Dr. Maya, is that it's on audiobook, and yours truly recorded the audio. And it was so fun to record the audio version of this book. It made me fall in love with the book in a new way. Like I had a different experience and relationship with the book, reading it out loud and performing it in that way. So it's available in all three formats. Buy a couple of formats, if you like.
Yes. And I just love how Dr. Kamani is also in the chat. We had our colorism conversation last year, and I was like, we need to bring you back. We spoke it into existence, and now you're here so we can talk about the book. Y'all, we are still in chapter 1, but we are about to wrap up. But Dr. Webb, you tried it, and so now we're going to have to do it, and we're going to have to talk about short hair. So you have talked about the fact that, okay, it's a privilege that we can go into the bathrooms. We don't have to worry about anything. I also would identify as cisgendered. And so I definitely have the privilege of going to the bathroom. But I wanted to let you know of experience where that was not the case. and we're traveling abroad is now going to enter the chat. So
Come
as
on,
you
let's
know,
do it.
we doing it. We doing it and doing it well. Okay. As you know, I lived in Colombia for a year. And at this
Mhm.
time, I decided to cut my hair like really short. And I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like it really brings out my features. Like, I like my head shape. This is cool. I could just touch my head all the time. It was wonderful. And the rest of the world was not enjoying this time. And so I faced a lot of harassment and verbal violence for just cutting the hair, right? So it was oftentimes that people would misgender me. Very commonly, they called me sir, they called me ma'am. I'm sorry, they called me sir or man all of the time. It was horrible because never in my life, Dr. Webb, had I ever been called a man. Like, I was so used to being like very feminine presenting that just wasn't an experience for me. So it was like actually traumatizing for a full year. And this mostly would occur when I was in the airport and I was like going from one
Mhm.
country to the
Mhm.
next. So there was a time in Brazil where we had to get a COVID test in order to get on the plane. And the person took the COVID test and they wrote everything up. And when they printed it out, Dr. Webb, even though I gave them my ID, they put on there that I was a male on an official document, even though they had my documentation that said that I was not. And I was just like, I don't even know how we got here. I also talked to the
Right.
person. We had a full conversation. And so I'm like, that's wild. But the worst
Mhm.
experience is when I was headed to Uruguay and I was headed to the bathroom. And this lady was like, oh, that bathroom is for women. You shouldn't go into that bathroom. And so then I opened my jacket and showed my chest, and I'm like, I am a woman. And then she's like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. And after that, I just went in the bathroom and cried because I was like, I don't understand how you just cut your hair and automatically you're just a man. Like, how did we get here off of that? Right. And then I've heard people, let me take it further, Webb. I've heard people be like, did you wear earrings? Were you wearing feminine clothing? Were they able to see your boobs? What does that have to do with anything? So I'm supposed to do extra work to convince people of who I am
Mhm.
rather than
Mhm.
them automatically just assuming that I'm a man. So the question for you is, why is curlier hair seen as less desirable globally, as well as why are Black women with short hair perceived as men?
So this is a big question, Dr. Maya, and I like how you just dropped it on me to answer because you also got a PhD, girl.
You wrote a book. Okay, it's in the book. Okay, it's in chapter one.
Yes. Now I'm like, let me read it right quick. Now, let me see what I say here.
Okay. Do you need me to start you off? Do you need me to start you off? You got it.
I
You
do.
got
So
you got it. Okay.
a lot of it, has to do, and it's sorry because I'm gonna start with a recent example that reminds me of this because I've been working with elementary kids the past few weeks, and I get questions about my hair from adults, but children are kind of unfiltered. Like adults are gonna comment and ask questions, but children going I'm thinking it, I'm saying it. Okay. Um, and I also think that I present feminine in terms of like my body type and my earrings, my necklaces, right? Like all these codes, all these signals of like femininity or womanhood that I think I give off are things that would be associated with that gender. But the hair thing, like in the children's mind, is the marker of girls and boys, right? Not my boobs, not my hips and my waist, not even the style of dress, not the earrings and the rings and the bracelets and the necklaces and the walk, right? The way I sashay is like none of that reads feminine to them. It's just the hair. Like long hair, girl, long hair, feminine, right? And so what that reminds me in this like very recent, very present experience is that we are indoctrinated and enculturated to associate that at a very young age. And I talk about an example in the book where I had even shorter hair than I do now. It was like a more of a bald fade. And I was walking down the steps, and this young child, says, "Mommy, is that a boy or a girl?" So some kind of cognitive dissonance she had, where she was like, "There's something that's giving woman, but the hair, right?" So she couldn't reconcile like the womanly things about me with the very, very short hair. So it's like, "Mommy, is that a boy or a girl?" And what I say in the book is that when I heard that question, I then immediately heard silence, right? And so I didn't see them, but I imagine that the mother shut it down instead of taking it as an opportunity to teach the child and train the child in saying like, oh, women can have multiple ways of looking, and hair is not inherently one or the other, right? Like that was a missed teachable moment, and so for a long time, and this is something I've studied mainly like within like our cultures, like Black culture in the diaspora. But there's this anti-Blackness around it, specifically for Black women, because our hair is not just short, right? There's something about the shortness of the hair that is also simultaneously like Afro textured, that people see as particularly masculine or particularly manly, and therefore misgender. And I think, even when you wear the big earrings, and this is what I'm saying too, it's like that is actually not what it's about. Because even when you're wearing things that people that code as feminine or code as women to other people, if your hair is short and Afro textured, that's like it takes precedent in people's minds in terms of your gender identity and gender expression. And so the long-standing association of, I think, Black people and African people and our features and our hair as being antithetical to womanhood, as being antithetical to femininity, whether it's like constructed femininity, oppressive femininity, liberated femininity, like any way that word means to you, Black identity, Black skin tones, Black hair textures, Black features has been conditioned and trained to be antithetical to that, right? And there's this insistence throughout history and through the people who create social narratives and who perpetuate images and portrayals in the media that support that ideology and that support that notion that things of Africa, things of Blackness, it's our skin tone, our body types, even our mannerisms and our expressions, right? That those things do not map onto social constructs of womanhood or femininity. And so, for a lot of Black men, like, okay, cool, they don't care either way. A lot of Black men are fine with that. But for Black women who do see themselves as feminine and who do identify as women and want to be perceived that way and approach that way, we have to overcome that narrative. And it could be very subtle. It's a very subtle thing that the long legacy of conditioning society and conditioning the culture to identify and equate femininity with whiteness and with white features and with white presenting hair textures and hairstyles. Like that, so much has been invested in terms of time, money, resources, intelligence into creating that narrative and propagating it worldwide. And I think it's so entrenched at this point that people don't recognize it as a stereotype. They don't recognize it as conditioning. It feels like a biological, natural truth. They're like, oh yeah, the woman in the group is going to be the one with the longer hair, or the feminine person in the group is going to be the one with the straighter hair, like straighter and longer. It has to be that particular combination. And I think even Black people, even brown people, even people of color, BIPOC folks have been exposed and have also been subjected to that same conditioning and have accepted it and internalized it. And so you're going to see it, and it is a global project, and it is when you think about the scale of colonialism and the scale of anti-Blackness, it's no surprise that it happens when you travel abroad, because those things have intentionally, I think, been perpetuated in spaces around the world. And I think the anti-blackness piece is something that is easy, when we identify ourselves in a global context. Like we think, oh, there should be solidarity around like all these, the global majority, there should be a lot of solidarity. But anti-blackness is a force that we see playing out in a way that is very much easier to understand through the lens of colorism and through the lens of texturism, because you can't hide behind like, oh well, I'm Brazilian, or oh, I'm Colombian. You really have to, you're confronted, and you really have to face, yeah, like that's my identity, that's my national identity. But you don't know that when you first see me. You have no idea where I'm from when you first see me. When you first see me walking through an airport or coming up to your place of business, you don't see American, Nigerian, Colombian, British, French, South African. You see dark skin, short, natural hair. And so I think international travel experiences is such an interesting field to see that play out. Because when I went to Brazil, it's so interesting that you talk about that experience in Brazil. When I went to Brazil, people didn't know where I was from. They had no idea. They're like, "Where are you from?" And they asked the question as if like you literally could be from anywhere. Like they had no idea. I mean, once I opened my mouth and started talking, it eliminated some options. But all the experiences I had in that place as a complete stranger, people could only interact with me based on my skin tone and my hair and my facial features, right? I mean, it may be my dress, my, how I styled myself and that sort of thing. But again, it's why the lens of colorism and futurism and texturism is non-negotiable. Like you cannot assess and analyze these issues without that lens, without that framework, because no one knew my nationality or my ethnic identity in those spaces. And yet you see this discrimination happening. And I know I went on a tangent beyond what you specifically asked, but there's so much there to tease out.
Listen, this is your time. Okay, we are here for what? You and your book. All good. All good. All right. You did fabulous. So I don't even know why you were nervous to answer that question. I'm going to add to what you said. First of all, I'm gonna call out my uncle. Okay, he's not gonna be in the chat, but I'm still calling him out. Great. So I cut my hair, and my uncle was like, "Why would you do that? A woman's beauty is in her hair."
See? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna forget that. Another uncle, because I got so many. I cut my hair, and he was like, "Now you got to wear big earrings to compensate for the missing hair."
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's enough of the family. So let's go into the
And
research.
and I also think though, Dr. Maya, that there's so much that we have to be willing to question. And I know it's so like it's so easy to just take these things for granted, but we can also ask the question like, why is so much at stake for
Mm,
being perceived as a woman? Like,
yeah,
who cares if strange people I don't know and will never see again, people
yeah.
that I've never met and will never cross paths with again? Why is there so much at stake that those people correctly identify my gender, right? And I don't mean it in like terms of like a misgendering thing, but I think there's an ego wounding. Like if a woman,
Oh,
I identify as a woman, I see myself as a woman, a cishet woman in particular. It's like there's an invalidation of my experience in a way, and I think I'm even questioning that, right? Like what is happening internally that I need these strangers. And I'm not talking about like your experience where it leads to violence or it leads to discrimination. I mean like in a less invasive way, right? And just in terms of like perception. Um, because there is so much pressure and so much value and worth placed on um like what your uncle was saying, a woman's beauty is in her hair, right? And having those feminine charms, right? That feminine desirability, or being able to attain or feel like you align with the beauty standards and the beauty norms for women in particular. And so even that is like, you don't want you have to wear the big earrings because you don't want anyone to think you're a man. And I'm like, like that very premise. And I'm thinking in real time, right? Like I don't have an answer to that in the moment, but I'm feeling called to
No,
question
please
that
question. So
desire.
I
Yeah,
love what you said about an ego wounding. And I think that the biggest thing you can do to wound people is to question their gender all the time, right?
yeah,
Like always being like, with black women calling us men
yes,
all the
yes,
time, comparing us to
exactly.
men all the
Right.
time. And that is a huge ego wounding. So, as a person that this happened to, it happened to you as well. I would
Hmm.
say what it was at first I was just like, "What?" Like, I'm just so used to being in this world and perceived as a certain way, having experiences of discrimination as a woman, and so I'm like, "If you gonna call me a man, like, can I get the benefits from being a man? Like, I'm
That
still
part.
number 75 in line in your line
That part.
example." They wasn't like, "You a man, you're number 3." Like, no,
Yeah.
I was still back there, so I'm like, "That's
Yeah.
wild to me." If you gonna call me a man, I also want male privilege, and they never gave that to me. So I was
There
like,
you
in
go.
that case, let me be who I am. Also, for me, it was ego wounding because I am a feminist unapologetically, right? Like that matters so much to me, and being connected to womanhood matters a lot to me, right? Like being connected to this, being connected with other women, promoting women, like that matters a lot. And I felt like that was being stripped away by being called a man, because I'm like, these men would
Hmm.
never go as hard as I will go because I understand it. Okay. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
and two, just like as children, the indoctrination, right? Of like, girls over here, boys over here. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. And just to be constantly called a man to me was just wild. Like it was just, I had never experienced anything like that before in my life. And then to kick it up to the discrimination was just too much. Now I still get called a man, and I'm like, that's fine, right? They're like, hombre, they're like, senor. I'm like, whatever, I don't care anymore. And so, like you said, there is no ego wounding for me. But I do know for a lot of other Black women, they were like, Maya, love the fact that you cut your hair. Hair looks great. I couldn't do that because I don't want people to think I'm a man. So maybe that's something as a collective, as Black women, we have to work through of like, why does it matter if we're perceived as a man or not? I'm not sure. That was just how I was feeling about it in
Yeah.
said moment.
So what I'm tracking now is that we haven't gotten to the chapter on dating yet. But for women who, for dating purposes specifically, want to be gendered as their gender, that helps. But also, to your point, there's something about it's not a neutral misgendering. It's not a neutral perception. There's a clear valuation, or rather devaluation, that happens in that. And I think, in my like multi-generational thinking and dreaming and ideating and visualizing, visioning, um, we will value life equally, regardless of how a person identifies, how a person presents, how they, you know what I mean? Like, whatever gender you are, I will treat you the same. But we don't live in that society yet. We don't live in that society yet. And I think for a woman, like to your point, like men will have male privilege. But for a woman to be perceived or labeled as a man and or masculine or hypermasculine, it means you're actually knocked down even further in the realm of discrimination and devaluation and stigmatization. So, yeah.
That was good. Okay, I'm going to mention, because we got to move on. We got so many chapters. I'm going to mention really quickly what the research shows, because after this happened to me so much, I was like, are there other people? I had a friend who's also in the chat that would send me validation from other Black women who also had experienced this. The research shows that Blackness is often associated with maleness, that being an Asian is often associated with being feminine, and that being white can go either way. Like people can see white people as men, they can see them as women, like it's a complete flexibility. But specifically with black and specifically with Asian, it's those extremes. Like
Mhm.
blackness, we already know with criminality, we already know with like brutes, we already know with how our bodies are shaped, things like that.
Mhm.
Globally, people see us as a threat, and so they see that as maleness. And for Asian, because of being like small, tiny body, maybe short, things like that, they see that as more feminine. So I just wanted to give the context, like globally, of how we are being perceived. Okay, so now what I did, y'all, which is just so cool, is like in 10 seconds before this chat, I was like, let me make this real quick PowerPoint, because I had told Dr. Webb that I'm like, we probably need visuals so people can actually understand what we're talking about. So, closing up chapter 1, you talked about barbers believing that maybe you might be perceived as a man because your hair is short. And I wanted to talk about why light skinned women, such as Amber Rose or Holly Berry, are not perceived as not being feminine. They actually are like, some of them are the ideal types of femininity and beauty, but they still wear their hair short. And I wanted to give us an image so that we can see, just in case people did not know. So this is going to be Hallie on the left and Amber Rose on the right. So could you describe to us how these women have short hair but can still be perceived as beautiful and or feminine?
Yes, because people unconsciously and also oftentimes consciously associate lighter skin and thinner features with femininity. And so, like for them in particular, it's being lighter skinned and having the thinner nose, and that makes people clock femininity. And it's almost like, oh, well, you get to do that because you're the light skinned girl with the thin nose. Like you get to have your short hair. Like you can pull that off because of that. So it's as simple as that. Like those, that's the equation.
And also, Dr. Webb, someone said, it was a celebrity. She said that black women, it was a meme, black women think that they're going to cut their hair and look like Amber Rose, but they really end up looking like Michael Jordan.
Yeah. So that meme, Dr. Maya, thank you for sharing that, is the colorism in manifestation. So it's like the ideal of cutting your hair short and looking like Amber Rose is saying, because she could have said looking like a dark skinned person with short hair, right? And she could have said looking like a light skinned man, right? But specifically, like the woman that she chose for that meme was the light skinned woman within the nose, and the man she chose was a dark skinned man. And I know we are skipping ahead some chapters, but when you look at portrayals of men and women in media, your 90% of them are going to feature the woman character or the woman person as the lighter skinned person and the male character as the darker skinned person. And so again, just reinforcing that darker skin means male or masculine.
Okay, we are closing chapter 1 with this final question. And it is about how dark skinned women have to like really overdo it and be super feminine to be perceived as beautiful. So, this person is Olandria. She is from Love Island, if anybody watches that. And in my dissertation research, I had some of the girls, I did colorism with young girls in middle school,
Mhm.
and one of them said, in order for dark skinned women to be pretty, you always have to wear makeup. And this is a middle school. Dr. Wood, this is middle school. And she was already like the
Yeah.
makeup, right? So for a person like Olandria, it's the makeup, it's the hair, it's the outfit, it's the body. What is it about dark skinned women that they have to like take it to above and beyond this like glamour? It has to be glammed up in order to be perceived as beautiful.
Yeah. Can you restate the question?
Yes, I did say a lot of stuff. Okay, so what is it about the fact that Dark skinned women have been indoctrinated with the idea that in order to be perceived as feminine or to be perceived as beautiful, they have to always wear makeup. They have to always have the hair laid. They have to show the body in a way that a light skinned person does not. So the two people we just saw, maybe they don't always have to wear makeup. Maybe they don't always have to have a nice outfit. Maybe they could just walk out the house and they'll still be perceived as beautiful. But for dark skinned women, it's like this extra added work that you need to do for people to think that you're beautiful. Like you can't just wake up like this, right? There's work you have to put in. And I think there is some type of indoctrination or, you know, internalization that we have of like, well, I just can't walk out the house like this. I have to look like this, be glammed up all the time in order to be perceived as beautiful.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was tracking with the first iteration of that question. So it's an answer that I wish I didn't have to give, but this is the answer that I have. Is it's a lot of dark skinned women, it's beyond mere indoctrination, and it is um, a recognition. They are recognizing. A lot of dark skinned women have recognized what happens in the world, what happens to them, how other people treat them when they look one way versus when they look another way. And unfortunately, so many dark skinned women have had multiple experiences where people treat them more favorably, maybe kinder, maybe more willing to see them, more willing to welcome them into a space or opportunity when they look like this lovely person. And even just avoiding, and this is a constant refrain that I hear, is avoiding. So even if you don't get extra benefits for presenting this way, so many dark skin women say presenting this way at least allows me to avoid the sneers, the snickers, especially from Black men, but also like other people in the community. It allows me to avoid maybe being like overly biased and like certain levels of discrimination. Now you will still be discriminated against if you're perceived as Black, no matter how much makeup you have on. But it's a mitigating factor. It really is. And I know that that answer does not support the notion of like embracing more of our natural beauty, because I think that can still happen even when you know that there's a lot of stigma and discrimination around choosing to walk out of the house without makeup and without the long straight hair. But that's where it comes from. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I want dark skinned women to understand, and I want the world to understand about dark skinned women, like just how much we're having to manage and negotiate and navigate and contend with. Right. And so one of the things I talk about in the book is like we will have various forms of coping strategies. For you and I, it might have been the degrees. Well, I'm gonna just I know I can do this and can't nobody tell me nothing about my dissertation and the grades, my GPA and all that stuff like that. For other women, it's like, well, I know I can look snatched and I know I can, beat my face and, have the glow up, so to speak. And so it's almost like um, a survival strategy, to be honest, for a lot of women, especially a lot of women who don't have the access to a community and to relationships and to content and to spaces that affirm their natural beauty and that support them and hold them up when the rest of the world is attacking and stigmatizing and discriminating against their more natural features without the makeup and without the added hair, etc. And so when you realize the harsh conditions under which a lot of dark-skinned Black women are surviving and trying to thrive and trying to experience and live a life that is enjoyable to them, we have some people go the route of like, well, let me get extra access to like a good job and like these other markers of success and attainment. And other women might choose to say, well, I'm going to make sure I look the part, right? And some people do both, right? Some people do a mixture of things or something else entirely. But it is survival in a lot of ways. And my hope is that any woman who chooses this as a matter of survival understands the game that they're playing and does not internalize it as an inherent truth, right? And so that's my, I think the tragedy is that so many women are unconsciously and subconsciously playing this game as a matter of survival and coping, a very colorist world, but they haven't developed a level of consciousness and awareness to realize that that's not a truth, that it's not an inherent truth, right? Like, so I'm making my adult choice using my agency to choose to play this particular game. And my hope is that you have enough self-awareness and consciousness to know that that's what it is versus, no, I really, really need this in order to be valuable and worthy. And I think that's an important distinction to make.
Thank you, Dr. Webb. You have said some things that every one of us needed to hear. It was so good and so well thought out. You are right. Sometimes we just trying to avoid ridicule, like sometimes we like just straighten the hair so they just won't talk about me. Let me put on makeup so that, people think that I'm attractive. Maybe I want to be beautiful too. Maybe I want to be
Mhm.
called pretty too. But like you said, making sure not to internalize those things is a fact. Okay, y'all, we are done with chapter 1. Dr. Webb, bring the book back so we can see her one
Hey,
more
where,
time.
wow.
All right,
Mm.
we are done with chapter 1, y'all. We are now skipping all the way down to chapter 5 because Dr. Webb already prompted us to go to dating. Okay, it's not my fault. This is where we're going in the conversation. We're in chapter 5. We're going to
Woo.
dating.
Chapter
All right.
5 is key. Mm.
Chapter
Really,
5 is
really
the
the whole
tears
book,
of
but
the tea, Dr. Webb.
is
So we're
that.
gonna start off hot because we already hot. We gonna continue on being hot. We need to talk about internalized colorism and how this can lead dark skinned people to seek light skinned partners. So, adding to the stage is going to be Kiki Palmer, who is an actress, singer, just like incredible at all things, host, probably got 500 different jobs, probably working a job right now. And her partner of choice was Darius, which is, I don't know what that man does. Please let us know in the chat if you know. So, Dr. Webb, can you talk to us about how internalized colorism could cause a dark skinned Black woman to seek a partner that is lighter? Because one thing that Kiki has said in her interviews is she was like, when I met him, I was like, you're obviously attractive, like you're gorgeous. And he didn't think he was that attractive. He like, I'm basic, but she thought he was that dude. And I'll just let you know, Kiki, if you're watching, I love you down, but you are a colorist and that's okay. You probably just internalized it. And so we go talk about it today. So, Dr. Webb, what is it about internalizing that may make dark skinned people seek a light skinned partner? We can also see this in the term of men. We could talk about this forever with those men, but let's just start here. Let's start with dark skinned women and we're going to move our way to dark skinned men. But we'll let you start here. We'll give you an easy piece of people that probably are a victim. So we'll start here. Take it
Mm,
away.
mm. So when people, it's interesting because we have, well, one thing we haven't touched on is the myth of reverse colorism. So that doesn't exist in the same way that reverse racism doesn't exist. But in the conversations around colorism, people say, "Oh, well, a dark skinned person can't be colorist," and I think they're talking in the context of so-called reverse colorism, right? But as you said, like dark skinned people absolutely can be colorists in the sense that they too can place higher value and higher esteem and higher affirmation on light skin, curly hair, green eyes, thin nose, right? So dark skinned people can also say, like, yeah, I'm gonna put this light skinned person on a pedestal with the curly hair. Like dark skinned people also participate in that. So in those ways, lot of dark skinned people are colorists. um, and so I'll start there foundationally is that any person of any color can be colorist in their dating choices. And so what we see with women in particular is this desire to what I hear. I think a common refrain and a common trope is not only is that person in my not, and not only are they going to see that person as more attractive, but then they're also going to gain social validation if they have a lighter skinned child, right, with that person. And so it's almost like this proximity that they're able to gain that I think maybe feels like a balm to the colorism they might have experienced. It's like if you've been diminished and if you've been stigmatized and shunned and rejected because of colorism, then having this high status, quote unquote, high status partner that the world sees as beautiful, that other people would acknowledge as a quote unquote catch because they are also colorist, then that um, helps them cope a little bit with their own sense of like being invalidated. And then also, if they are able to, if they choose to have children and that child also comes out lighter skinned, a lot of dark skinned women take so much pride in that. And it's just like vicarious pride. So, because I have suffered from colorism, what you often hear from men and women is, I don't want my children to have to suffer that same way. So, I want my children to come out lighter with this type of hair. But also, um, there's this like, wow, look what I did, right? Like the world didn't see me as valuable. The world didn't recognize my beauty, but look at my beautiful children, right? And it's really, really sad and really, really tragic in a lot of ways. Especially knowing what we know, that it's not just about that feeling within yourself, but as long as that feeling is unhealed, imagine what you're projecting onto those children then in that instance. Um, so yeah.
That is a really, really great point about what you said about um I face the colorism, so I don't also want my kids to have to face that. And I think that that is valid, right? Like we are just out here surviving. I don't think that every single time somebody does this, they're like vindictive. And I think that people that are lighter are better. But it's just like, like why would I want to put that on my child? I can actually understand it. And so, because you mentioned this, I will show you Kiki's baby. Wow, this baby will not have to face what Kiki faced, which is probably nice. And she seems very happy with this baby, always wants to show off this baby. We know that they've probably made comments about this baby. So the goal that you mentioned was also achieved. And I think that was a part of the partnership as well, is like knowing that the kid would not have to look completely Afrocentric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, black men, I know you're there. So we will talk about y'all too. We're going to have you enter the chat as well. So I believe, Dr. Webb, that for black women, a lot of this of partnering with lighter skinned people, it is internalized colorism, right? It is, like you said, that social currency to see you. I'm like, wow, that person saw you as attractive too. That back, great.
Exactly. Yeah.
However, black men, I disagree. I think with black men, sometimes it can be like that trophy, that prize, like, let me show off my wife, just in general, how they want to do with all women. So if we talk about racism, maybe dating a white woman. And I don't think that the colorism is the same for the
No,
black
it's not.
men. Okay, so now Dr. Webb, Kevin Hart, our favorite, has entered the chat. Okay, because he is also a dark skinned person that has also chose someone that was not dark skinned. So, can you tell us what your thoughts are on the fact that dark skinned men also choose light skinned women, why they do that, and how that's different from dark skinned women choosing light skinned men?
Well, it's different because of the patriarchy in particular. And whether they believe it or not, whether Black folks of any gender believe it or not, Black men benefit from patriarchy, benefit from misogyny, and are participating in it. I don't know. We have this, so many people have this narrative that like Black men somehow are not benefiting from patriarchy. They absolutely are. And so, in a heteronormative dating market, dating arena, men of all races, like every race of man, is in a position of power in, I mean, in the world, right? And we think about how across cultures, across societies, and across time periods, across generations, um, men have been able to navigate partnerships based on other things about them besides physical appearance. And that has not been the case for women in a lot of times. Well, I mean, the wealth of your parents, maybe as a woman in certain cultures, like if you had a wealthy parent, then you were more likely to end up with a partner or a marriage partner. But for the most part, like women's um, value and like their options are so much more based on like perceived beauty. Um, and so for darker skinned men, even though they experience colorism and are negatively impacted by colorism in the realm of dating and marriage, that is less likely to hold them back. And in the book, I quote the Biggie Smalls lyric where he's like, he basically says, I'm not going to quote it word for word, but he basically says, yeah, the world thinks I'm unattractive. You know, I'm dark skinned, I'm this, I'm that. They might even say I'm ugly, but I'm rich and I get all the women. And so I think that that was such a quintessential example of how men are not subjected to the same limitations based on perceived physical attractiveness that women are. And so when we think about something like colorism and how it impacts perceptions of beauty, that is going to impact women much more harshly and more negatively in a society that judges women on beauty more harshly and more negatively. And then also, I think because of like this power dynamic and this power imbalance, it's so much easier for like the more privileged person in this dynamic, which is the man, to distance themselves and to what I say, throw dark skinned women under the bus, throw black women under the bus, and completely sometimes, but definitely dark skinned black women throwing us under the bus and saying, well, I as a man I get access to these things in society and I'm gonna run with it. And I'm not interested in taking my people with me. I'm good if it's just me and mine, right? Um, and I also think that when we talk about someone like Kevin Hart, I remember and I don't remember the exact joke, but I remember like feeling or like in my mind, whether this is good or not, in my mind categorizing him as a colorist because he made a joke about light like dark skin. I think he might have started the joke with like don't let the light skin fool you, I'll still fight you, or it was something, and it might have been about credit card. It was some joke he made that revealed that there is a level of bias, there is a level of indoctrination, there is a level of a narrative playing out in his psyche, whether he's consciously aware of it or not. It's there. It's evident in his conversation, in his dialogue. And so seeing that, it's not surprising to see that play out in his dating choices.
Beautifully put. I love this so much. You are a fan. Look, let me just tell you. Let me just give you your flowers on this Juneteenth. Dr. Webb, you are just such a fantastic, incredible mentor. I mean, like, I just look at you, I'd be like, wow, there's another dark skinned Black woman out there wearing natural hair unapologetically and just calling it out because it'd be lonely out here. You'd be like, wow, I'm just getting dragged by myself. That's wild. I didn't sign up for this. So I just want to let you know you do always what needs to be done. So, since you wanted to mention this, okay, you did this yourself. You mentioned Biggie Smalls. So I had to let Biggie Smalls enter the chat with his
Yes.
partner of choice, which was
Yeah.
Faith Evans. So he would
Yeah.
choose to marry Faith Evans, but not other people. And like you said, he mentions being dark skinned, he mentions being unattractive, even, but still able to give Faith.
Hmm. Yeah. Because in a patriarchal, misogynistic society, like he had the money, he had the social status and the social power, and so that took precedent over how people might perceive his physical attractiveness as a man.
As a
And
man.
again, in societies across the world, women just do not have that same agency and power in the dating marriage arena.
Exactly. Exactly. And also, I'm gonna call out this colorist, even though he ain't alive. But if you listening, when he told Escape that they were ugly, that was inappropriate, and that ruined their career for like 5 years. Okay, he called them
Really?
unattractive
Who
because
who
they're
was
mainly.
that? Who did that?
This is Biggie Smalls. This is Biggie Smalls.
Oh, he,
Yes, he called Escape, the R&B group Escape, unattractive. He actually said worse than that, but I can't say it on YouTube. And he was like, I would never be with them. They're ugly,
oh my
whatever,
God.
because they're mainly dark skinned with only one light
Yeah.
skinned member. Okay, look it up if you have time. All right, just wanted to call that out. Okay, we're going to move on. And Dr. Webb, in the chat, we have, could you show us the book again? What day does the book come out? And what is the name of the book?
The name of the book is Colorism: The Politics of Skin Tone and How We Get Free. And it comes out July 7th, but you can pre order it today. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to say you can pre order it today. I'm going to say, please pre order it today.
Period. Okay, so I said that we were going to wait for a question, but we got one really quickly. It is a creator used the term color struck as opposed to colorist when referring to people who prefer lighter skin because colorism suggests systemic oppression. So the question is we wanted to know, is there a difference between color struck and a colorist? Can a person be color struck but not a colorist?
I love your cadence in asking these questions, girl. I love it. Um, to be color struck is to be a colorist. And to be honest, color struck, that term was around a lot earlier because Zora Neale Hurston wrote a play called Color Struck in the 1920s. So that predates the term colorism, as far as we have documentation of. Um, and so it was the term people used to refer to colorist people before we had the term colorism and colorists. And so it stuck. It stuck. It sticks around even to this day. But yeah, so I'm gonna my answer, and to be honest, I answer my questions this way because yes, I am an authority. I am a preeminent authority on colorism, and I leave room for the fact that we have multiple perspectives, multiple viewpoints on this issue, and I want the robustness of this topic specifically to be in the same way we have conversations and dialogue on racism, right? But what I'm saying is, if you are color struck, as in you have a quote unquote preference, that is colorism. People don't agree with me though. People are like, oh, it's just a preference. And I'm like, mm-hmm. Yes, your preference is a colorist preference.
You right, you right. Okay, we're gonna pull one thing out of the chat really quickly.
Okay.
Hello, so glad to see you, Sister Harriet. This person calls themselves Sister Harriet. They have Big Harriet, they have Medium Harriet, and Little Harriet. So the Harriet Club, if y'all out there, shout out to y'all. Okay, so what we have is the other thing I noticed with colorist Black men is that they will sleep with dark women but marry our lighter sisters. Does this behavior sound familiar? And also, when we go along with this, Dr. Webb, can you talk about the fact that dark skinned women are perceived better as sexual partners and light
Mm,
skinned women more as marriage material?
yes, I am going to read from the book. On page 116, in chapter 5, I say, similar narratives and myths impact women as well. Women and men across the color spectrum are fetishized for different reasons. Colorism adds an additional layer that leads some to believe dark-skinned people are only good enough as sexual partners rather than serious romantic or marriage partners. And this leads many people to treat dark-skinned people as just an opportunity for quote wild and crazy sex, particularly in secret or clandestine ways. This makes dark skinned people, especially women, vulnerable to sexual exploitation and violence, such as rape and sexual assaults, and that violence is oftentimes condoned or not even acknowledged because people claim, quote, it's what they wanted anyway. This is a tragic response to the very real violence and trauma that too many women experience. So yes, that sounds very familiar. To answer the question from Big Harriet.
Thank you, Harriet, for that question. That was good. That was real and very, very unfortunate. So, when I made the joke about the body being tea, Dr. Webb, that was one of the things I noticed. I was like, I would tell my friends all the time, I'm like, dudes are so interested in being with me physically, but they are not interested in like me actually being their partner. And so now, y'all, Riri's gonna enter the chat. Okay, Riri, ASAP. Let's step up. Okay.
Your audio cut out.
Me.
There, we can hear you now. Can hear you now. Yeah? Wait, maybe now. No, not now. Somebody know you about to drop some gems. We got some trickster ancestors
It
up in
was
here.
the fact that I called him out and he was like, not on my internet. You don't know
Yes!
money. We will shut you down.
Big,
Okay,
Biggie
right.
Smalls was like, look, on this Juneteenth, I'm an ancestor too. So here you go, all right? Pull the plug. Pull the plug.
Okay, so we are looking at another colorist. Okay, so this man has said, Dr. Webb, this man has said that dark skinned women should not wear red lipstick.
Oh, that was him. He's one
That
of
was
many, but I didn't know that he was one of the main ones.
And so I wanted to talk about the gender dynamic of colorism within dating and marriage and why it's that we perceive a light skinned woman femininity and dark skin as masculinity. And even in your book, you said in same sex relationships, there could be a dark skinned woman and a light skinned woman, and that light skinned person would be perceived as feminine and that dark skinned person would be perceived as masculine. And it kind of is going to go back to what you said about like, it's just a preference. Like, why are we hating? Like, this is just who I wanted. But when you start to see that every single person that they want is light skinned, how is that not a bias?
Hmm.
And in
It
addition to
is
that,
a bias.
it is a bias. And in addition to that, a lot of these famous dark skinned Black men have started off with someone medium or dark skinned. Don't, Dr. Well, how did they get there? Like, and then they got famous and they were like, all I see is light. All I see is
Yeah,
white. I don't,
that's oof, talked about that for years growing up. How they're in their minds to be a successful person means to have a light skin or non-black partner, right? Like to them, that is inherent in their social upward mobility or their upward social mobility. But I forgot. Okay, so say that again. The question.
yes, it's my fault because I'm not asking questions directly. I'm saying a
That's what
bunch
I
of
felt. I was like, I think we're just riffing.
good luck. Okay. So we know that this is a bias. It is not a preference, it is a bias. But how can we have conversations with these people about the
Mm.
fact that you keep dating only light-skinned people, which is a bias rather than a preference? Or like, can we have a discussion about preference versus bias? Like when people say that to us and they're like, I just have a preference for this. Why are you on me? But we can tell,
Yeah.
that, like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, please go.
Yeah, so this my perspective on this is controversial, and there are other colorism scholars and colorism activists who even disagree with me. Um, but when it comes to something like a preference, the word breaks down to prefer. And so language I use, comments I use is that to assume you are not attracted to someone before you see them is a prejudice. Literally, you're prejudging. And the people say, oh, it's just a preference, as if it's like, oh, I see a stimulus and I'm naturally and organically attracted to that stimulus causing me to react in a particular way. One, we know that those reactions can be conditioned. I love talking about some Pavlov's dogs, right? Where they were conditioned to salivate at the sound of a bell. You ring a bell and the dog starts salivating. Why? Why? There's nothing inherent about a bell that says salivate when you hear this bell. But because they consistently paired the bell with food, you can condition these animals to associate the bell with something that they value and think is worthy. And so if you're constantly being told that beauty, hey, beauty over here, and you're constantly pairing it and seeing it paired and seeing it attached to and associated with light skin, that is how conditioning happens, right? So there's that. So even if you say, oh, it's just a preference, there's a lack of acknowledgement that your preferences can be conditioned. They're not just like always, I was born with this preference, and people aren't willing to interrogate. But the second thing, though, going back to what I was saying earlier about how if you are making the argument that this is your natural response to light-skinned people or to seeing these people, you have to have the intellectual honesty to say, right, if this is a natural organic response, then I can't predetermine it. I can't say, oh yes, this person I don't know what they look like, but if you tell me they're dark skinned, I can't be attracted to them. I don't know what they look like, but if you tell me they're light skinned, I'm probably going to be attracted to them, right? No matter, no other feature, like no other mannerism, like no other trait is needed for you to make that assessment. That is not truth. That is not intellectually honest, right? And I also say too, like it's there's a difference between being like, yes, I am choosing to be colorist. I'm like, you're gonna have people that they do know that is colorism and that is a prejudice and a bias, right? People are gonna people. But for anyone who is trying to position themselves as not participating, not actively participating in an oppressive system and an oppressive hierarchy, then that is one hill that they seem to be willing to die on, is that, oh, this is just an innocent, benign preference that is not impacted in any way by the culture that I was born into. And also, I will say to your point about how do we talk to these people, I think, like, if I'll use ASAP Rocky in particular, right? Like, I don't necessarily like need him as an individual to be aware and to recognize, but I am going to educate the masses because there are people out there who are intellectually honest and who are interested in self-awareness and who do want better of themselves, who do want to be called to better for themselves. But not everybody wants to be called to better for themselves, right? Like just like you have MAGA folks, they are perfectly content with being bigots and being MAGA and being this, and that, right? They don't want to be called to better. And you have the same within our communities too when it comes to something like colorism. You're gonna have, and that's a significant source of heartbreak for so many of us, is that there are so many people in our community who just really don't care. Even if they intellectually understand that it's colorism and that it's a problem, they're like, yep, and I'm enjoying it. I'm living great. But so yeah, like an individual person, I don't necessarily need to convince them, but I am going to educate the masses for the many people out there amongst the crowd, amongst the community who do want better for themselves and for their community, and who are ready to be willing to look in the mirror and say, you know, I could get off on going tit for tat with white folks and calling them out on their racism. Am I ready though to think about and consider all the ways that I act the same way, that I act the exact same way? I could dress down a white person like nobody's business when it comes to how they don't want to acknowledge racism. But when it comes to me not being willing to acknowledge colorism, all of a sudden, all my intellectual gymnastics and all my intellectual pontification just goes out the window. And so I'm kind of alluding to a larger issue of like people um, who are really, really apt at like critiquing white folks for how they show up in conversations about racism. And then those same people, some of our favorites, I'm gonna say it, some of our favorites when it comes to conversations around racism have taken the textbook prescription from the white people they critique and use that in conversations about colorism. So
Mm.
I'm gonna stop talking now.
Good. Oh, good. Never stop. Okay. So to wrap up dating, I would just like to say the difference between Rihanna and Keke Palmer's partners who they decided to partner with, both of them identifying as Black women. But as we can see, somebody like Rihanna has lighter eyes, obviously a lighter skin tone, maybe a looser hair texture. Somebody like Keke Palmer is going to have kinkier hair, a darker skin tone, darker features. And you can see that we can see sometimes with dating, and I have heard like light skinned people, like, I really want somebody dark. I really want to be with a dark skinned person. Some of them have had the experience of people not thinking they're authentically Black. And so they're like, let me get the darkest person I can find, which literally one of my homegirls said that. I did not say that. She said that and she did. Moving on. And then somebody like Kiki, who does not have the privilege of being light skinned, is like, well, I can get with a light skinned person and I can also choose someone. I can also have a child that is lighter skinned. So even in our relationships, who we choose, even as Black women, the colorism that has impacted our lives in different ways will have us to partner with people in different ways. And so that is going to be our conclusion on the dating. And now, since it is Juneteenth, y'all, we're going to talk about some like historical stuff. So, Dr. Webb, this is what we're doing right now. We need to talk about the one drop rule in the US very briefly, like we're not going to go all the way into it. And the facts that mixed race or biracial people are out here identifying solely as Black. Now, they did not say they didn't have a white parent. They never said that. But sometimes they're like, yes, I identify as a Black person. And now Obama and Zendaya are going to enter the chat because Obama's like, I identify as a Black person because that is the way that I'm always going to be perceived. So why would I ever identify any other way? Zendaya also wants to identify as a Black woman, and both of these people have Black parents. Obama's father is Black, Zendaya's father is Black. And so, do you think it is okay for people that are biracial to identify as solely Black, or do you see that as the erasure of Blackness for people that are monoracially Black who are identifying as Black?
Mm-hmm. So I think the history does complicate this question, because this is in the United States because conceptualizations of race and how racial categories are determined is different in different countries. But in the United States, with the one drop rule, aka the rule of hypodescent, one, no Black person has had the authority to decide racial categories writ large.
Mm.
Racial categories on a national scale, on a global scale, were never our decisions to make. White people determined what racial categories were and who had to fall into them. So I want to start there. Like the very idea of race was not invented by us. Now we might have had tribalism, we might have had we've had isms that were inherent to our indigenous cultures as Black people and as people of the global majority. But the concept of race, as we understand it in this conversation and in conversations around racism largely, like racial categories were determined by white folks. And it, like the fact that racial categories would even exist was like an invention of the white imagination, of the white colonial empiricist imagination, right? And so we have to understand that the way we're existing in a system that is beyond us when we talk about racial categories and racial classifications. And racial identity cannot be boil down to a person's individual feeling about who they are. Because race is a social system. It's not just like, oh, today I woke up and I feel like identifying as this race. I mean, although people have tried it. You know what I mean? Like, so race is like it's a social contract. It is a system that is larger than any one person's like upbringing, so to speak, right? And it is also that. So it is culture, it is upbringing, it is your family dynamics, it is your sense of belonging to a particular community and the dialect and the mannerisms, right? And that's the part that I think a lot of people miss in these contemporary conversations. And it's so much beyond us. And so in the United States, with the one drop rule, with the rule of hypodescent, Black people did not get to choose to be classified as Black, even as mixed race Black people. Like, that was a legal, political matter of a governmental decision that was out of our hands, right? And so we have to understand the historical context that a biracial Black person in 1890 would have been sent to the back of the train car as a Black person. Oh, you're a Negro, you're colored, you're Black, you're whatever the terms were, right? And so because the American society and the American system was so rigid, did not leave room for the kind of nuance that we see in places like Central and South America and the Caribbean, for example, right? And I think a lot of the influence on this conversation comes from this global lens, where in other countries and with other histories, they had space in their government policies and their legal policies and in their cultural practices. They had space for that level of striation and disaggregation that in the United States, we did not have historically, right? And so it's a relatively new conversation to be saying, and I think someone from Obama's generation, because he's even older than me, right? He grew up in a generation where there was close memory of that. There was close memory of, like, even the people who had a Black grandparent, not even like a direct Black parent, like their grandparent was Black. Like, they were close enough to that history, to that historical time period, where they did not have the luxury of saying, I'm not Black or I'm something else, right? Because race is not just how you're cultured. It's not just like your food and your music and your dialect and your language and who you surround yourself with. It's also a legal system. It is also a political system. It is also a political tool. And it was created in a lot of ways to hoard power, right? So if we can make a legal document, if we can write an immigration policy that says in order to become a citizen of the United States, you have to be a white person, then we need to be very considerate of who gets to define themselves as white, right? We have to construct this notion of whiteness, this idea of whiteness in such a way that we restrict citizenship rights to a certain number of people, that we restrict voting rights to a certain number of people. And so Black people of various mixes, whether they were fully racially Black, whether they were mixed, had a further back Black ancestor, like, they did not have the legal political choice to choose anything other than Blackness. And I think that that's a level of historical context we have to consider. And what people are doing now, rightfully so, because the one drop rule, the rule of hypodescent, because it has racist origins, I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we did not interrogate it, if we did not question it. And I say, even if you choose to adopt it, do so in full awareness of why you're doing it. What is your political strategy in choosing to embrace the one drop rule, right? Because there could be a case for a really intelligent political strategy that says, yes, we are going to identify or understand Blackness in this encompassing way because of the political power it gives us, right? Or whatever the reasoning is. And still, because the one drop rule was inherently racist, we are responsible to question it, right? And in some cases, completely dismantle it, right? And also being able to say, we don't have to restrict ourselves in the present to what the legal, political, social systems were of the past. And so, yes, the one drop rule may have served a purpose, may have done something, may have had a role, and we are well within our rights. All honor to our ancestors. We are well within our rights to say we appreciate where we've come from, and we now have the mantle in our hands to ask, do we want to continue? Do we want to continue on that path, or can we create something else? Can we envision something else? And so now I see a lot of mixed race people. And I'll also say this too, when I was growing up, hearing a mixed race person say, I'm not Black, I'm mixed, was anti-Black. It was said with a very anti-Black attitude, right? As in, I don't want to be associated with Blackness. Don't call me Black. I'm mixed. I'm different. I'm better than people who are just Black, right? So there's that generational difference as well. And so now when people are saying, I am not just Black, I'm mixed, or I'm a mixed Black person, right? Using all these different experiments with language, exploring language to create space for the nuance. And it's very, very important to acknowledge the nuance. I think that is still relatively new territory for us. And so giving each other grace and saying, like, look, this is language this is ground we have not covered yet as a people, particularly in the American context. And for my international folks, y'all got to give us grace too, right? Like, we did not grow up in a history where there were all these like varieties of like how people identify. You're that ethnicity, you're that, and like we're this and we're that. Like, for Black people in America, we were very much in a very hyper rigid system. And so it's new territory for us to reconsider, like, yeah, that was a historical context, and we understand what it did, who it served, who it didn't serve. And now we're using our power and our agency to say, what do we want? What language do we want to use? How do we want to empower ourselves in terms of self-identity and the narratives that we create around who we are, who we identify with, the communities we align ourselves with? And I do think there is even a difference in a mixed race person who presents as white because of their phenotype, and a mixed race person who presents as non-white or Black, or, you know, whatever their particular mix is. Because again, colorism has taught me that a lot of mixed race people I've worked with who are brown skin or don't quote unquote read as mixed, they are going to have a very different experience as mixed or biracial people who most of the world perceives as mixed or as white, right? And so I think that question is one, I think my final answer to that question is that it's one that I don't want to prematurely define for an entire world. I think it is healthy and necessary for us to be willing to really question, interrogate all of the categories and forms and ways of identifying. And to a larger point as well, because race is a social construct, I want you to acknowledge that even if you choose to identify as Black, we can talk about colorism as Black people. We can talk about featureism and texturism as Black people. We can talk about the tangible differences in having a white parent, right? We can talk about the tangible differences in having a white mother versus having a white father, right? And so to extract on a more micro level, if we all identify as human, that doesn't mean we're having the same experience. And so just because a mixed race person chooses to identify as Black, if they are saying it from a place of, and therefore my experience is exactly like yours, that's the conversation I want to have, right? Because there are people who are not mixed race, who are not having the same experience as me, right? So like both of us are monoracial Black people. One is light skinned, one is dark skinned. We're not having the same experience. And so the conversation that I feel is most immediate, the more immediate conversation is regardless of how you identify. Can you stand in all the ways that you are privileged within this category? So I'll end with that.
That was beautiful. Guess what we got? Somebody done pre-ordered your book and can't wait to
I saw two people in the chat said that they pre-ordered it. So thank you.
Yes. Okay, look at this. Can't wait to read this book.
Yay.
It's 17th. Let's go. I love this. Okay. That was really good. That's the only thing I'm going to take out of chapter 2 since we have so many other questions here. We're going to jump to chapter 8 because we are here Juneteenth. And so I think it's really important. I love how you talked about in chapter 8, people like Kamala and Obama have made historical strides, milestones. However, their skin tones, ethnic or racial background were important to their success. So it is often the question for me, or like how we can have discussion when people are like, I worked hard for what I got. Like, you know, there is some merit in what I did. Why are you saying it's just based on how I look? We hear this from white people all the time. They're like, I worked hard for this job. I did whatever. And that could be true. But could you also like pick apart the fact that you looking the way you did was also very helpful. And these are the two people that we have consumed the most politically, right? On the national stage, and how not being monoracially Black was beneficial.
Yeah. So it is two things that are happening intersectionally and simultaneously. It's not just that they look the way they look, because you have monoracially Black people that look like Obama. You do. You just do. You have monoracial Black people who have the same complexion, features, and hair as Barack Obama. I don't know what else to tell you. So there's that. Those people benefit from colorism. Those people benefit from colorism, even though they are monoracially Black. So yes, Obama and Kamala benefit from colorism. And there is a separate yet intersectional tandem parallel benefit of then also being mixed race. And I have to say this too, Dr. Meyer, because not all mixed race people look alike, right? There are biracial people where they have one Black parent and one non-Black parent who are my color. I just want to put that out there, right? They're going to have a very different experience from a Kamala Harris. Full stop. So they benefited both from the colorism and the featureism, but also the context, right? The socio-political context of having a white parent or a non-Black parent, I should say, that was actively involved in their life in particular, right? Where, because I use the example even of, like, if you have a white parent or a non-Black parent who goes to school to register for you at school, or goes to the doctor's office to talk about their mixed child thing, like that non-Black parent is going to have a level of privilege and access to advocate for their mixed race child that Black parents won't. And so it's also things like that you are benefiting from. And I was doing a presentation and someone was like, well, Kamala Harris wasn't chosen. Like, she wasn't running against any dark-skinned women, so you can't say it's colorism. She wasn't running against dark-skinned people, so it's not colorism, it's racism. And I was like, well, the fact, one, that's not completely true, but the fact that there weren't any dark-skinned women running could be the colorism, right? Like, that in and of itself could be the colorism, is that of the one Black person, it was the light-skinned person. But also, like, there were other Black women with darker skin tones who could have been chosen or selected as the vice presidential candidate, right? And they weren't. So there's that aspect too. But the thing I say in speeches and in workshops and in the book is that also privilege compounds. So if Barack or Kamala, because of someone else's colorist bias in kindergarten, was like, well, we're going to make you the fairy in the school play, and those opportunities and that investment in their self-esteem, that investment in their development and their growth, that investment in their learning, that investment in their in building capacity with them from early age, kindergarten into high school. They get chosen to be the cheer captain, or they get elected senior class president, and all these other things that unfolds, all these opportunities, all these privileges, including the intergenerational privileges of having a non-Black parent, or having a wealthy parent, or having this parent or that parent that inherited their privilege. And then, you know what I mean? And so you can look at colorism as not just the immediate instance of achieving something. It also, in colorism also includes every instance that allowed that instance to happen.
For sure. Okay, are you even ready for this? So was Michelle Obama a colorist for Mariam Barack?
I mean, that's a good question.
That's a great question. I actually don't know.
I would like to see her pattern of other dating.
Yeah. Agreed. Because when I am like, this person is a colorist, I know this because they've said coloristic things. They've said things that were harmful and problematic, and that reinforced negative stereotypes about dark-skinned Black women while highlighting or pedestalizing white and light-skinned women. Their pattern of dating is often they tend to date people that look a certain way. They kind of like all look the same. That is what I'm saying when I say that person is a colorist. So Michelle, to this point, to my knowledge, has not said anything that I was like, Michelle, why would you say that about, certain skin tones or things of that nature? And as you mentioned this as well, I think it was so surprising to the world when we were introduced to Obama, because we were expecting he would be with someone white or light skinned.
Yeah, of course. That's why people was like, oh, we don't pay attention to this dude because of who. But I also know about Michelle is that she wasn't feeling Barack.
Yes.
She from the story that I know of how they met, she was not the kind of woman who was like, ooh, this is light-skinned biracial man. Like, let me get him, scoop him up. She was like resisting it. And she was like, no, I'll introduce you to my friend.
You're right. If you read
So
her book,
she wasn't color struck in the sense that like she was immediately like, yes, I want to try to date this man, right? It was something that, from what I could tell, grew. Like he grew on her.
yes.
Like, okay.
It's in the book. Yes, I'm your witness. It's in the book. Her book.
Yeah.
Michelle's book. Okay. So first of all, Dr. Webb, let me check in because we are at time.
Yes.
But how much time do you still have on this Juneteenth?
I have a little more time. I would like to see more of the chat because the chat has been popping off the whole time. And thank you to everyone in the chat. I've been peeping a little bit. I haven't been able to like read in detail, but I've seen some of the comments and it's interesting. Yeah.
This is what Webb want, Webb gonna get. We gonna go straight to the chat. All right. So happy Juneteenth.
Girl, I love it. Like, this is what Webb want. Webb gonna get it.
It's today. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. Good to see you. Hello, Dr. Kamani.
Yes.
Hello, Doctora Pam. Bonito dia. Hi to my mom, always in the chat. Love to see you, Mom. We may have someone new. I have not seen you before, but welcome here.
Yes, I know Tara. Hello.
Hello, welcome. And for Black American culture, definitely. I'm so happy to have this conversation on Juneteenth. Also, Dr. Kamani says she loved our shirts. Okay. Motherland. Where can we get your shirt, Dr. Webb? Where can we get that?
I don't know. It was a birthday present, so I don't know. The source.
Okay. We also have Hey Summer, thank you. Happy Juneteenth. Two renowned experts.
Hey, renowned. World renowned.
Big Harriet in the building. Happy Juneteenth. Okay. And hello, Prophet Mother. So good to see you all here. We love that. Chat is popping off. Okay, that was cute. That was our hellos. Now we're going to get into the real. Okay, almost one more. Hey, Vonnie. Good to see you too. Happy that you're here. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Okay, this was another person pre-ordered the book. Can't wait
Woo-hoo.
to
Thank
get it.
you, Big Harriet,
Thank you,
Colette
Big
Elizabeth.
Harriet. No, oh, come on. Jay said in the chat, please get Dr. Webb's book. You will not be disappointed.
Thank
Period.
you, Jay.
Okay. All right. So, our first comment we have here is that I hope you will also discuss about our beautiful Black natural hair textures, also in another topic discussion. Thank you for the honest discussion. Let me ask you this, Dr. Webb. Do you think that there is a value in us talking about like different hair textures? Some people have said that this is really divisive to like have a hierarchy about hair textures. But I argue that like knowing our hair texture is helpful for you to get the right hair products. So what do you think
Mm.
about talking about like hair texture and numbers and letters?
So people have pointed out that the numbers and letters can reinforce the hierarchical nature of it, right? By saying like 4C, like why doesn't the why don't the letters and numbers start in the reverse?
I
So the
see, I
fact that
see.
the fact that the numbering system and the lettering system starts with the straightest, like it starts with that, and then it works its way, quote unquote, down, or up. We can see it as working its way up because the numbers get higher. So therefore, our hair gets higher, But so I see where people are coming from in that regard. But to your point, describing things is not inherently bad, but so I can say like, oh, the sky is blue, and if you have a negative idea of blue, you will project that onto what I said. Right, like the sky. Well, you shouldn't say the sky is blue though. Like, why are you saying that? Like, we shouldn't notice the color of the sky. We shouldn't notice colors in the sky. And I'm like, but I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just describing something. And so I think that's work. When I talk about how we get free, the liberation work, the healing work, we have to look at what are the things we're placing value judgments on that don't need a value judgment. So to say something is straight, something is wavy, something is curly, something is coily, those could be neutral things. Like they don't have to have an inherent better than, less than value system attached to them. We can divest and untangle ourselves from that. Um, yeah, so I think it's perfectly, like you said, healthy to know your hair, to just like you would know, like I have dermatitis, and so I use specific types of moisturizers. I use specific types of soaps to clean my face, right? So that it doesn't irritate my skin and things like that. So self-awareness, being able to describe something with fidelity, especially, so one, just to like know it, but also when you're talking about the practicality of then being able to care for it and nurture it and have your needs met, I think that is very valid.
I agree with you. I love that. Hi, Halise. Thank you for stopping by. It's good to
Hello.
hello, hello. Gotta say hello to the people in the chat. And then also wanted to take a look at Claude. Okay, y'all, this is the first subscriber I've ever met in person. Claude, thank you for allowing us time to meet your mom, to see you in person. It was fantastic.
Oh.
And thank you for always being such a committed follower of my work. Appreciate that. Okay, so from Big Harriet, you got wow, monochromatic diversity. That's a cold term, but I see
Hey.
it and I understand it. And it's also so fitting.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
I love the affirmations on
Yeah.
this Juneteenth afternoon.
Okay. Also on this Juneteenth, we got a long comment we love to see. So we have preferences for a certain skin and hair texture are unconsciously showing up with my two daughters. One of them is 2 shades lighter than me, and the other 2 shades lighter. One has a 4C, we just talked about hair texture, and the 2A. Hair Saturday was telling. They are 42 and 43. I didn't realize this until I took the free implicit association test from Harvard. I then reflected back and ended up apologizing to both daughters. The younger once said I white and she's black, it was my husband that nipped that in the bud.
Yeah. And I think that she was going on to ask what recommendations we might have.
Yeah.
But I think what I love about what Etta Ward is saying on LinkedIn is that a lot of times parents are unconsciously um, either actively contributing to colorism, or they're just not aware enough to prevent it. Right.
Mhm.
And so that's something that, even my mom has apologized for not being as aware as she is now. Right. She's like, I'm sure there were things I missed. Like there was more I could have done if I'd had that knowledge back then. And so I think that's a great example of parents not getting in their ego, not saying you're the worst parent in the world, right? Because you had lacked this information. And the willingness to apologize is so um like such a great example as a parent to be like, oh, I now have this greater awareness of a topic and this greater self-awareness of how I might have contributed to this topic. And I'm willing to go back to my children and apologize and, seek repair. I think that's a beautiful thing. So thank you for that example, Etta Ward.
Yeah, I love how your mom apologized. That is great. Hey, Auntie, happy
Hi,
Juneteenth.
Marcia Jenkins.
And from Etta too, we all have privileges. Thank you for breaking that down for us. Yes. Hi, Papa. Hey, okay. The first one,
Your people showed up.
they did. They show up and they show out. Let me tell you, my dad was always like, the white man did this, the white man did that. And I was like, who is this white man and why is he so angry with him? Why is this man so mean? So thank you, Dad, for always teaching me all of the things. Who knew that there were so many of them?
I
I thought,
love that. I love it.
hey, Prophet Mother, I love when
Yeah.
authors record their own audio books.
Okay, so you want a little bit of behind the scenes tea on the audiobook? Just for
Yes.
fun. Just to add a little levity to the conversation. So usually for audiobooks, they hire professional voice actors for the most part, unless you're like Viola Davis and you're reading your own book, right? So they were like, so Dr. Webb, what kind of actor like would you like us to cast? Should they have like a particular accent? Do you want them to be able to speak in multiple languages? So I gave them some ideas, and then my agent sidebar with me in the email. She was like, before you respond to that email, do you want to record your own audiobook? And I said, yes, I would love that. So she was like, okay, bet. So then we came back and it was like, yeah, but also Dr. Sarah would like to be able to record her own. So it was like, okay, just to, manage your expectations. And I was like, I don't need nobody managing my expectations but me. But anyway, just to manage your expectations, we usually hire out, but just send us a sample, send us a sample and we'll consider you. So me, knowing who I am and what I can do, I was like, bet. Whipped up that recording, sent it in, and I knew, girl, they emailed me back. We would love to have you. I was like, I know. And I'm in the recording studio, and they're like, you are so good. You're making this so easy. I was like, yeah. y'all ain't know about me, but I knew.
You know about yourself.
Anyway.
I love that. We know about you on this channel. We know
Yes.
about you. Okay, I'm gonna say hey to my brother. Happy Juneteenth.
Aww.
Thank you for being here. You also got Dr. Webb is cooking. You in there letting us know, getting this right. And then from Prophet Mother, when I cut my hair or my daughter's hair, people act like they are mourning a loss.
Yes. When I stopped straightening my hair and went natural, people were having meltdowns. Like, oh, how could you cut off all that beautiful hair? I was like, oh, girl, you'll survive. You'll be all right.
Decide to cut it.
I originally stopped perming, like chemically straightening my hair and went natural when I was 16. But I was wearing like a larger afro, and then like in my early 20s, I did like a low fade. I started wearing it shorter. Yeah. So,
Okay. No worries. Jay said it's unfortunate how much focus there is on women's hair and how we defined it as a woman's value. Absolutely. I think that's another piece of the colorism is that even for people that are darker skinned, if they have like long hair, if they have like wavy hair, think of a Tatiana Ali, think of Chili, right? Then they and not suffer as much of being dark skinned because they have long hair or be
Yes.
perceived as
Yes. Yes.
beautiful.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so we have I'm indifferent to what others think about my beautiful black natural hair, short or long.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep, and then Jay says, as a woman, you lose privilege if you don't present feminine enough.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also have, I always say, because I experienced as a child having relaxer since I was age 12, I told myself and others, hair will grow back.
It does.
Same, it grows back. It's all good.
Right.
Okay, Big Harriet, even without short hair, some of the folks try to misgender Black women regardless. Look at what our First Lady Michelle Obama was dealing with is crazy.
Yeah,
Okay,
and no, she said forever first lady.
for forever, forever First Lady. Dr. Webb, I'm gonna need you to take this. How is
Yeah.
it that even when you're feminine, they still trying to misgender you?
Because it goes back to that trope and that narrative, that propaganda that if you're black, you can't be a woman, right? Like that was those two things have been mutually exclusive in the white colonial patriarchal imagination. So whether you have long hair, whether you present as quote unquote feminine, to be black, especially to be a dark skinned black woman, you it's mutually exclusive in their imaginations to have that identity and also be a woman. So yeah. But I will say that does compound. It compounds when you also have short natural hair.
Mm.
Because imagine, you can imagine that if Michelle Obama is getting it even with straighter hair and longer hair,
She
like
would.
imagine if she did have hair like you and I. I mean, it would be nonstop, right? It would be a constant ticker tape of that. So,
And she mentioned, Dr. Webb, that she would never wear braids in the White House because of
mhm.
how people would perceive her. And so she was like,
Yeah.
I'm so happy now to be done with that. I can wear braids.
Mhm. People was gonna scrutinize every choice she made.
Everything, everything.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for talking about hairstyles. No problem. And then we have, I think that the darker hue sister may be expected to stay glammed up is tied to you're pretty for a dark skin. Oh my gosh, Dr. Webb, take it away. You're pretty for a dark skinned woman. Why is it that we automatically assume that dark skinned people are not attractive? Is wild.
Mhm. And it's also that is often is that's the intersectional nature of it too. Because I used to say I never got that statement because I was not one of the dark skinned people that people considered pretty. So to be considered pretty for a dark skinned person, you have to have the features, you have to have the hair, you have to have the quote unquote flawless skin, right? And so it's this assumption. What the statement implies is that broadly speaking, dark skinned people are not beautiful, but you are, even though you are dark skinned. You are pretty, even though that you're that.
That is a really, really good point. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we had a previous conversation. I feel as being complicit with certain cultures' hair and skin tone as standards of beauty. Many people have to admit that I say, I don't know what we were talking
So
about. Okay.
I think I know because one I'm a Gemini, so I'm the queen of multiple things can be true at the same time. So in using long straight hair and makeup and fancy clothes as a coping mechanism for a colorist, racist, patriarchal society, you are trying to survive that system while at the same time, what Black American lesbian professional is saying, also um, being complicit in maintaining those systems, right? So it is the same thing. Like to say you're going to play the game validates the game. So that's true. Yes, both of those things are true. I think what you're saying is true. That to say that I need to do these things in order to move through these spaces and navigate these spaces in a certain way. In a lot of ways, allows those systems and those dynamics to continue. And at the same time, it is still a survival choice for a lot of people and a coping mechanism for a lot of people.
That's a really good point. So I wanted to bring into the chat where you talked about you're pretty for a dark skinned woman,
Mm-hmm.
because I do think that this is something that needs to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you know this actress?
Yes.
Yes.
Michaela Cole, right?
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Michaela is known for having Afrocentric features like
Mm-hmm.
fuller lips, nose, wearing short natural hair, and
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily being perceived as beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is true what you said. Like people have called me, have identified me as dark skinned, but I haven't gotten pretty for a dark skin. That is not a thing I typically get.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I think somebody like Lupita is a person that has gotten that, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a whole time, I know you were there, where like Lupita
Mm-hmm.
was there all the time. We see her constantly, and we can see the difference of the features, how Lupita has the smaller nose, smaller lip,
Mm-hmm.
right, and is perceived as more feminine,
Yeah.
therefore more
And
beautiful features.
there's even like a jawline, right? Like the shape of the chin and the jawline, like the facial structure is something is more aligned with what people consider feminine and pretty.
Yes, yes. So I just wanted to bring that into the chat of, like you said, being pretty for a dark skinned girl, but not everyone is gonna get that.
Right.
Yeah.
For facts
Um,
and for truth.
oh, another comment we have, Kevin Hart, we're talking to you, is problematic in a myriad of levels. His colorist tendencies add to the unfortunate list. I know a lot of people are mad at this man currently, and I'm like, when he said that you can hit a light-skinned woman and she bruises, but a
Maybe
dark-skinned,
that's what it was. Yeah, maybe that was the joke I was trying to remember.
y'all wasn't done with him when he said that, or that he said dark-skinned women have bad credit? Nobody was done with him then?
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm gonna just sit back and watch. I'm gonna just sit back and wait for y'all to figure out what we're talking about. Okay, so anyway, that may have been problematic. All right. Oh, Dr. Webb, what you think about this comment? My dark-skinned male
I think
cousin used to say
I think that is so dehumanizing.
he
Like
don't.
there's a level of colorism that tips over into like just outright rhetorical violence and dehumanization. You know what I mean? And that's what that is.
That's what that is. Can you explain, just for people that may not know, he don't burn coal, what that means?
So a lot of dark skinned people, myself included, and particularly, um, and it's interesting because it was by a black boy. It's a story that didn't make it into the book. I have to do outtakes of all the stories that didn't make the cut because I talk a lot. I have a lot of stories, but there are more stories that I can share. So this is one that didn't make the cut. But there's a boy, and he was like, he used to call me Blackie, Tar Baby, Charcoal, all this stuff. And he used to talk about people like Aaliyah, and he was like, I like women like Aaliyah. Those are pretty girls. I like light skinned girls. Right? He used to explicitly say that. But there are these phrases where it seems like you might say like, well, what is he talking about? Like burn coal, like what? So he's equating the skin tone of women, dark skinned women, to coal, and so it's sort of like a derogatory metaphor that he's using, because when he says he don't burn coal, meaning he doesn't date women that he is comparing to coal. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Okay, middle Harriet here. What I what I also find disturbing is that there are still colorist prejudgments prevalent in our community, even with the
Oh,
younger
yes,
generation.
absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah. And we can see
Yes,
music. We can see examples in music for this.
very young. They're picking it up, and it's like there's not enough time in the day to reach all of the young people.
Okay, tell it, Dr. Webb, about our Black American culture. When I lived in South Korea as well as Britain, I saw colorism in full force. Okay, I know we don't have you for much more time, but could you talk about the colorism abroad really quickly, like India and like preference for
Mhm.
fairness? You talked about Latin America, racial mixing, mejor la raza, let's mix together, erase that blackness, skin bleaching in Africa. You don't have to do all of these, but just so that we know that colorism is global because we didn't focus on the US.
Right, right, right. Because it's Juneteenth, so of course we're gonna focus on the U.S. But globally, yes, colorism, and we did talk about like global anti-blackness, so we were talking about it in that sense. And so colorism is part of that larger system of global anti-blackness. But even in spaces where everyone in a particular country tends to identify as the same like race, they might have castes, they might have tribes and different ethnic groups, but for the most part, like people in India say we're Indians, right? But they do have significant distinctions in value systems and systems of oppression and hierarchy that are based on how fair, and they use the word fair. And I talk about that word in my book as well. And I break down like how the word in and of itself perpetuates colorism. Um, but also like being darker skinned and being dusky. And they had, I don't know if this made it in the, I can't remember if this made it in the book or not. I definitely wrote it, but I can't remember if it got cut. But there was a Bollywood movie that was talking about how this fair skinned woman was going to be the talk of the belle of the ball, the talk of the town, because she was so light skinned that even Beyonce would be ashamed. And people was like, "Oh hell to the no!" Like she came for Beyonce, and I was like, "Girl," in globally, even people who are considered light skinned in the United States are not light enough for like a global audience, right? And so the level of paleness that they aspire to over abroad in many other countries um, makes colorism like really severe and like really significant and like blatant, right? Whereas here it's kind of like, it's sort of taboo to say that you use skin bleaching creams, but in other places they have billboards, like it's on the billboard, like, hey, lighten your skin. And they have celebrities who get um endorsement deals to promote skin lightening creams, and they make these really egregious commercials where like these famous singers, these famous Bollywood stars are telling people, hey, if you want to get the girl, use this skin lightening cream. And so it's like we have a level of like it exists, but we know that we kind of have to like hide it and like pretend like it doesn't exist. But globally, they like, yeah, it's here. We out and proud with our colorism.
That was really great. That's awful. And in India, I see billboards all the time. When I was in Ghana, I went to get some lotion and it was actually a skin lightening product. And I was
Mm-hmm.
going to get it and it was like brighten, whiten. I was like, what is this? I'm just
Yep.
trying to get regular lotion. Insane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a comment that my birth certificate, the birth certificate of my parents' generation used to state Negro on it. Okay, and then we have a comment. I think you hit the nail on the head. Those who are colorists lack imagination. They bought into the playbook invented by the colonizers who needed to construct race to justify their treatment of humanity.
Yes,
Yeah,
Claude. Yes, Claude.
exactly. Beings like chattel or goods and depriving them of their humanity, we should definitely not accept this white vision of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes, that's for
Yes,
that.
exactly. Okay, model Tyson Beck for all the men are entering the chat on Juneteenth is biracial slash mixed race. And Reagan Gomez Preston from the Parenthood is biracial and mixed race.
I don't know what I know. Tyson Beckford, I can't put a face to Reagan Gomez Preston, but
as soon as I pull up Reagan, you're gonna be like, I know exactly who that is,
okay.
because there was a point in time that Reagan was that girl and she had to be in everything because she was the face of the face. Okay, while I pull up Reagan's picture, could you tell us about the fact that when Meghan Markle got married, they were like, oh my goodness, now Black women have a chance. And I feel like that is sometimes what they do with Reagan. They're like, oh, like people are actually attracted to Black women. They kind of like choose a Black woman that doesn't look like most Black women. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is an example of a Black woman being chosen. Your face is cracking me up. This is not what I made up. This is what they said. I don't know what you want.
Oh, I'm like, whose logic was that? I'm sorry. But, one thing, I actually credit Meghan Markle herself for saying she has not had the same experience as the average Black American woman. And I appreciate her for being willing to acknowledge that, because what I see is that a lot of um, women who either have her similar skin tone and features and hair, or who are mixed race, they want it to be like, no, we are all treated exactly the same and there is absolutely no difference. And I'm like, sis, it's not. And saying that you have a different so I'm going to say this, regardless of whether, like, take Meghan Markle specifically out of the equation, right? Regardless of whether you think the other person is or should identify as Black, saying that you have a different Black experience does not take away from the fact that you had a Black experience. And I think that's why we struggle so much, is that we think in order to say I had a Black experience, it has to be like a monolithic thing. And I'm like, no, we are all having very different Black experiences based on skin tone, hair, gender, nationality, language, social class, level of education, ability, disability, sexuality, level of education, level of world travel, like all the things give us different Black experiences. And it doesn't take away from your Black experience to say it's not exactly like mine. So I appreciate when lighter skinned Black people or biracial people say, hey, I face racism and it's very different for me. Like, the world is a very different place for me than it is for someone like a Dr. Sarah or a Dr. Maya.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Okay, does this face mean anything to you? Thank you. I knew you was gonna know your girl because she girl.
I know her.
You don't know your
She
girl.
was that girl. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so and we're back. Many people believe both individuals are only Black cultures, but not. Many people.
I think that was a comment about Obama and Kamala, maybe. I'm not sure.
No worries, just pulling it up. Okay, so Dr. Webb is correct. For years, the US narrowly defined white as Anglo-Saxon, to the point where Italians, Irish, and Polish were considered ethnic whites. We were taught this in school, but I'm 60.
Yeah, but there, like, to your point though, there are still people alive who remember who have been alive long enough to see the way they have reconstructed whiteness to serve their political agenda. So when they needed a larger voting bloc, they were like, yes, the Irish and the Polish and y'all come be white too, so that y'all can vote us into office. and folks fell for it.
Oh my God. There's also a writing on when Jewish people became white. Fantastic about how, yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
Hey, Lana, this is my girl. Hello.
Hey, Lana.
Hey, Lana. This is an incredible talk. Thank you both, Drs. Maya and Sarah. Delighted to share another Juneteenth, the second Juneteenth. Dr. Maya, hope for more. So much I'm taking away from today. Thank you for coming. Of course,
Oh, hopefully one of the things you take away from today is the
take
book.
away this
The
book.
book.
Okay. Dr. Webb, as we wrap it up, we got 7 minutes. I'm going to let you go because we've already ran past time. Can you tell us name of the book, date we can get the book, and how we can purchase the book?
Name of the book is Colorism: The Politics of Skin Tone and How We Get Free. It is available on July 7th, but pre-order it now so that you get it as soon as possible. And you can buy it in paperback, ebook, or audiobook, wherever books are sold. Support your favorite bookseller. And if you go to a bookshop and you don't see it on the shelves, tell them to put it on the shelves.
Period. Okay, you
Yeah.
thought we were done, but I got you for 6 more minutes. So now we're going to let the models enter the chat. And I'll take this away. Tyra Banks on the left, Naomi Campbell on the right, lighter skin tone perceiving and darker skin tone on the right. So one thing is that Tyra and Naomi have always been pit against each other. Racism, a form of racism of putting Black people against each other that can only be one all of the time. We understand. But in terms of the way that we see them and perceive them, Tyra Banks is always like, oh, Naomi is such a bully and she said this, and right? And Naomi is always seen as the aggressor, threw her phone at this person. Why was Naomi pushing that person? Why was she mad at that? I actually see this as an act of colorism, because we would go on to see how Tyra Banks is a colorist, because I watched all of America's Next Top Model, so she can come for me. Okay, I watch every episode. Let's go. And she will often, Dr. Webb, often say for people that were lighter skinned, let's say they had dark hair, she would say, your skin tone, your hair is too dark for your skin tone. And during the makeover, she will always lighten people's hair that were lighter skin tone, like a Black person with a lighter skin tone. She also will always say that braids were unprofessional and took them out of people's hair every single time. Every single time. There was also the act, this is going to be more of racism, where she would verbally attack Black women all of the time. And her most viral clip is her going off on Tiffany, dark-skinned woman, yelling at her, we're all rooting for you, which she definitely was not rooting for her. But that's another conversation for another day. And at one point, Dr. Webb, I noticed that it was just the show was getting lighter and lighter. So in the beginning, in season about 2, is the only time that we see 2 Black women in the top 2. You know, the runner-up and the selected person. What is the selected person? The winner and the runner-up. The winner and the runner-up. There we go. Okay.
What's the selected person called again? Oh, the winner.
And that is going to be Eva, and that is going to be...
I remember that season.
Right? That was the only time, Dr. Webb, the only time you'll see 2 Black women the entire time. And then in that season, also, she was very mean to Takara, who was a larger woman. They were always like, you know, larger women can't be models. Like, nobody cares about plus size. Takara talked about how they never had clothes for her. And then Yaya would stand up for Blackness. Yaya also has family from Brazil. So she was like very firm in Blackness, you know, very much loved the culture. And Tyra will always come at her for that, of like, you know, I feel like you're being disrespectful and why are you talking back, when she would advocate for Blackness. And the winner would end up being Eva, who is a person that has lighter eyes, a lighter skin tone, probably mixed race. And so I'm like, you're a full colorist. And the last thing I'm gonna say to her is that once we start getting to the seasons about like 20, then they're just biracial people. The representation of Blackness is only people that are biracial. There are no longer monoracially Black people.
I think I must have stopped watching after the Eva Yaya season.
As you should have, because it only gets worse. It gets worse, it gets worse, it gets worse.
Wow.
Okay, so Prophet Mother said Tyra had The one where she painted everyone black. Thank you, Prophet Mother, for entering the chat. Okay, so she also put people in blackface. These are not even black people, right? There's white people that she put in blackface as a black woman and thought that that was okay. And only when we call her out about it was it like, we did some things wrong. We didn't mean to harm the community. We were just trying to push boundaries. So my conclusion here is that we always saw Tyra as a victim, and we always saw Naomi as the aggressor. But I asked you to think about colorism and think about who was really the aggressor here, and who might have done some things out of frustration. Right? We're not saying what Naomi did was right. I don't think you should throw a phone at nobody. No. But did she deserve all the vitriol and hate that people had for her when y'all let this colorist slide by?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Because they didn't, it wasn't just like, oh, Naomi Campbell did something. It was like then she became like a villain, right? Like the Cruella de Vil of fashion.
she became a villain. Yeah. She became a whole villain. Thank you for that. Yeah. All right. So we have a thank for tuning in and sharing experiences with colorism. We have from Dr. Kamani. She is really an enigma, given where she was raised and who her mother is. It is very confusing regarding her comments in relation to identity and racism. Maybe this is related to Megan.
I think that was related to Tyra, maybe.
This is related to Tyra.
Because it came at 5:34.
Come on, time. Time
stamps.
Yeah. So also, like, Tyra's mom is always silent. She has never answered the chat. She was like, I still love my baby regardless of what y'all say. Okay, we gonna rock with her forever. Okay, sure. And then we have the phrase, there can only be one, stood out to me. The scarcity. Yeah, too much. All right, on this Juneteenth, Dr. Sarah L. Webb, thank you for coming here and telling us everything about colorism. Honestly and truly, you helped me so much in my doctor program. You will never know how much I read your work, how much I was a fan. And they say never meet your heroes, but you should meet Dr. Webb because it's been phenomenal.
Thank you. Oh my God, emotional. That is so sweet.
Oh my
God. Girl, don't gas me up, but gas me up.
I plan to. Dr. Webb, can we see the book one more time? Everybody just
one more time.
Please buy this book. It was fantastic. I read it cover to cover.
Oh, look, let's put Big Harriet's comment up. At 5:30, she said, let's buy Dr. Webb's book and leave a review, 5 stars, make it a bestseller, y'all. Thank you. Thank you for that comment. Yes. 5 stars on whatever review platform you want to use. And yeah, I want the world to know about colorism. And I think a book is one easy way to do that, giving access to that message. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody, we hope that you have a wonderful and enjoyable Juneteenth, however you choose to celebrate. Thank you for hanging out with us. Dr. Webb, thank you for coming by. We're so excited for you. Congratulations on writing a book that will be instrumental to how we move forward as a people.
I'm very expressive. Thank you. I appreciate you, how you show up in this space. I appreciate you for being a colleague. You know, I feel like there's sometimes a competitive spirit when two people are in the same arena, and like the beauty of you being like, yeah, we both talk about this. Let's talk about it together. And you did this thing and let me promote it and share it. Like, I just appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yes. And know that I am never one to like be put against other Black women. I believe in collectivity. I believe in community. I believe that we are in this together. As one person is successful, we can all be successful. And as I said on my last Juneteenth, 1 year ago, everybody, please continue to do things that will make you a good ancestor, okay? One day, our stories will be told. And what do you want your story to be told of what you contributed to the world? Dr. Webb's already done. Dr. Webb contributed a whole book. So let's keep it on board and also contribute.
Girl, don't say that. I got a long life ahead of me.
Okay.
If anybody's paying attention, I got more legacy to contribute. Just in case anyone's getting any ideas.
Congratulations.
I ain't ready to be an ancestor just yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Congratulations again. And I wish you all the best of luck with your book.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Happy Juneteenth.